Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lyds and we're back for some more Thronebreaker, and last time we made what will probably be the biggest mistake we will make throughout the entirety of this playthrough. I mean, we'll see. We've lost Isbell, and that is going to potentially be absolutely catastrophic to the success rate of our deck. So I am terrified of what that means going forward, because of course, we're trying to play this entire playthrough without crafting any units. And, well, that may no longer be possible, because we just lost one of our most powerful cards. And that being said, there aren't very many ways for us to improve the deck going forward, because if we're taking a quick look at our deck here, of course, the main key to success as of late has been the combination of a bunch of Skellige guys with the disgraced warriors and disgraced brawlers brought back onto the board with the help of Dogger, and then throw in Patricide while you're at it as well. But those guys were complemented greatly by having Isbell, who got stronger based on how much damage we dealt, or how much damage we had taken, and we take damage by playing these disgraced and using these disgraced warriors. So it was a really nice synergy there. We don't have that synergy anymore. So are the Skellige guys alone enough to get the job done, or was it only with the assistance of Isbell that we could so comfortably finish all those previous encounters? I am not sure. We also apparently have an invalid deck, because we previously had a card that we no longer have. Technically, I think we've gotten by doing this in the past, by just saying exit and lose changes. But we could throw something else in there if we were absolutely desperate. We got rid of Best Boy, who does go on the board automatically. I guess our leader ability, as things currently stand, would potentially summon him or force us to play him at some point, which is not ideal. But is there a card we'd actually benefit from adding to our deck, or do we want to deliberately keep an illegal deck with 24 cards in it? Is that our key to success going forward? I mean, it might be. It might be. Point is, at this point, we might be starting to get pretty desperate. I am very concerned. Oh, and yeah, so I'm not even sure that anything that we could craft, even if we did choose to do that, which obviously I don't want to do, but we might have to if we get stuck. I'm not even sure if we're going to be able to make any improvements, because basically our success was based almost entirely on the Skellige guys plus Isbell. And it's not like any of the new guys we craft are going to be any better than those guys, and they don't really complement them either. So it might just be a lose-lose situation from here on out. So if ever there were a time when I thought, you know what, maybe we should just rewind the clock and forget that ever happened, yeah, this probably would be it. But alas, here we are, and we're going to see if we can still power through it. And we are going to have to probably grind through one encounter at a time, and this right here may be our reality check. Our first fight, I would assume our first battle, after having lost Isbell. So just how much power have we lost? Let's see.
Let me tell you of Ravenkluft, a quarry Meve passed by. A quarry with a dark history. For years earlier, its wall had collapsed, burying dozens alive. Scholars summoned from Oxenfurt were unanimous in their findings. The rock was fragile, further digging would likely cause slides. Meve had heeded the scholars' advice and closed the quarry by royal decree.
Well, the Nilfgaardians did not, I'm sure.
Yet now, as she neared it, Meve could hear the even tap of pickaxes. She dispatched scouts to investigate. They returned promptly, their faces sullen, their cloaks blanched with a fine limestone dust.
Quarry's open anew, Your Grace. Nilfgaardians. They've got folk in the pit working it. Appear to be from the surrounding villages.
Interesting. Their engineers have found a way to render it safe. Secure the walls.
I'd
Or...
say that's right unlikely, Majesty.
Yep.
Judging by the fresh graves we saw.
Yeah, more likely they just have no regard whatsoever for the well-being of the people working that stuff. Yeah, also, for what it's worth, passing thought on the previous encounter we had in the previous video, which, well, there was the whole big deal that Isbell was making about us, forcing a bunch of Nilfgaardian, townsfolk out of the area because they were Nilfgaardian. We didn't really trust them, even if they promised that they were going to be loyal to Meve. At the end of the day, they're still Nilfgaardians, so we can't really trust them. It's basically the approach we took. And then the game kind of made a big deal about how, well, now this city is going to be completely abandoned and lifeless because you drove out all the people, and you're supposed to feel bad about that. Which, as I was saying at the time, felt like that was not really a great point to be made, because yes, that's true temporarily, sure, but as I said then, we've done many worse things than that in the past, and didn't really face any significant negative consequences for them, or certainly not as significant a negative consequence as what we saw last time. But the other thing is, I mean, it's originally a Rivian territory. Originally a Rivian city, or village. Sure, for the moment we drive the Nilfgaardians, but assuming we do succeed in defeating the Nilfgaardians, then eventually it's very easy for us to get some Rivians to repopulate the area, and in fact I would think that'd be one of the first places they'd go. So it just all seemed kind of odd, and kind of forced, very forced in fact, the way that was all set up. But alas, that's an aside. As for this, yes, makes sense. Nilfgaardians, no regard whatsoever for the well-being of their workers, and so they are just recklessly mining away at this place that maybe they knew was not safe to mine further, but they're doing it anyway. And so I imagine on this occasion, it'll perhaps be a similar decision to be made at the end, where, assuming we win, we'll have the choice of either continuing to have people work the mine and continue to have some sort of casualties. So that would be the kind of similar to the thing that we did last time, and that we are doing the thing that is not very kind to the people here working the area, and therefore, is someone else gonna abandon us? Would this also be a way to get Isbel to leave, but no one else gets mad if you do the morally questionable thing to do here? Or do you go the moral route and say, okay, yes, sure, it'd be nice to have additional resources from the mine, but at the end of the day, we want to keep our people working the area safe, and therefore, we will still shut it down. And once again, it's kind of different when it's Rivians and Lyrians who are mining the area versus Nilfgaardians, but alas, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
The queen then turned to Reynard, as ever at her side.
Reynard, what do you advise?
As a soldier, my queen, I'd advise against any kind of assault. The terrain's hard,
Ooh.
unsuitable for a fight, and we've little to gain from a victory.
Okay.
As a man, however,
Yes?
to leave our folk in chains, in that death trap,
Oh.
wouldn't be right.
Okay. Nilfgaardian flag, but are these Rivian prisoners that they have that are working? That... Oh, so they basically doing some... They've captured Rivians, and they're basically, you know, slave labor of sorts? Okay, that's not exactly the way that I thought this was going to play out. I didn't realize we were even going to have the option of choosing to or not to attack the area. I mean, most of the time when we do this, we just say, okay, well, there's no reason not to. However, in hindsight, there have been a few occasions on which maybe it has been best to just avoid these altercations altogether. Obviously, the one we just did last time around with the scenario in which led to us losing Isbel, which did, at the beginning of it, have the option of us just avoiding the encounter altogether, which, honestly, at this point, probably would have been preferable to losing Isbel. But at the time, we just assumed, oh, no, it's like any other encounter where, yeah, at times, we've had the choice to say no, but why would you ever say no to an encounter like this, right? Surely it's better to finish them all. So, that does raise some questions about this one. Oh, also, the one in, which I don't remember if we technically had the option to deliberately avoid when we walked past it and avoid the negative outcome, but the one back in Mahakam where we lost... Was it in Mahakam? Where we lost Rayla? Who was probably that's the closest comparison we could make to what happened with Isbel. Where, at the time, Rayla was one of, if not the most important cards in our deck, and we thought we were going to suffer dearly for having lost her, and... I don't know, you could make a case that Isbel is more important to us now than Rayla was back then. But, so all those are to say, we have some precedent that suggests that it is possible doing this encounter when we have a warning from Reynard that, hey, it's not all sunshine and roses. Doing this might only lead to bad things happening. Especially after having just lost Isbel. I'm not looking forward to potentially losing another hero. That would be catastrophic. Even more so than, I mean, Isbel already was. But, attempt to liberate or refrain from attacking. Yeah, okay. So basically, no, don't attack versus attack. I mean, what's gonna happen if we... I mean, if the previous one had a risk of losing Isbel, this one... I mean, Reynard's the one who's been the most involved with it thus far. He's the one who gave us the warning. If I had to predict, I'd say if anyone is going to leave or die from this encounter, it would be Reynard. And he's a good card. He's not quite as instrumental as Isbel was, but he does technically have some synergies with the Skellige guys, allowing us to reuse their order abilities more regularly. And at this point, we just have such less margin for error compared to what we had before. So even if in the past it seemed like Reynard was a nice little bonus, but not a huge factor, he might be necessary for us to win at this point, because we need any advantage we can get. So not sure we can afford to lose him. So I'm terrified. I might still do it, but I'm absolutely terrified.
If I were to calculate in heart and mind, keep note of gains and losses,
began Meve.
I'd bend the knee to the Imperials, just as Willem did.
I'm
Bloody
terrified.
arithmetic won't dictate my course, for I do what's just.
Oh,
I do
no.
what's right.
Okay.
Follow me.
Her troops followed
Okay.
without hesitation, swords in hand. Their
I mean, that
hearts
all-
on fire.
But all kind of just sets the stage for us to face some kind of pretty significant consequence for doing this, all in the name of being morally just. Which, I mean, it feels a whole lot like we're about to get hit with a double whammy, where on this occasion, doing the not so morally just thing is going to ultimately be for the best for the remainder of the playthrough, whereas the encounter we just did, it's better to do the morally just thing and save yourself losing Isbel. So we might get the worst of both worlds. A really nasty 1-2 combo that I am not sure we can recover from. Also a shortened battle, much like the previous one was. I mean, any comparisons, any similarities between this encounter and the one we just did last time, I don't want to. I don't want to see them. I want this to be totally different and not give us any further indication that we might lose a hero or have any other major consequence, but a negative consequence. But it feels like that is very much the direction that the game is leaning right now. So the battle at Ravenkluft, Meve had expected easy victory. From her scouts reports, she learned the Lyrians held a considerable numerical advantage over the invading forces. Yet the Queen had not foreseen one critical Nilfgaardian strategy: use the chained captives to fight opposite their own countrymen. Optional, eliminate all slave drivers. Special rules, shortened battle. Okay. I mean, this is going to be the original reason why we did this in many ways. I mean, first, of course, it's an encounter and we're trying to do all encounters, but also just to test, how are we doing without Isbel? Are we still in a place where we can comfortably finish encounters, or are we just barely going to be scraping by, or are we completely hopeless at this point? And this could only make matters worse. There's a chance this makes matters worse when we see this one through. So I am very terrified. We're on high morale for whatever that's worth. Yeah, it may not matter. Okay, so it's a whole lot of slave drivers. Damage an ally by 4, then boost all other allies by 1 on deploy. So if they have a lot of units, they'll gain power. Oh, and what's the slave hunter? Move the lowest enemy next to this unit and lock it. Death Wish. Move the enemy with the lowest enemy next to this unit and lock it. So one of our cards they're stealing. Move the enemy back to its side and remove its lock once this gets destroyed. So, oh, and has restraint. It's technically a boss. Okay, so it does really seem like we'd love damage. We'd love damage. It's, you know, it'd be great if we had our best damage card still in our deck. But as it turns out, we happen to have just lost it. So that's great news. That's great news. Yeah, I'm loving it right now. Everything is coming out exactly according to plan, isn't it? So, I mean, yes, we can get, if they steal Skellige dudes, that's pretty bad news for us, because that means that limits our ability to bring them, sacrifice them, and then bring them back out from our graveyard with Dagger, which was something we'd like to do. We do have an Infiltrator, and we do have Tainted Ale. We don't have a great target to go after it with, because we can't target you. We could hit one of those guys. I mean, none of them are that big. They will do a little bit of wide boosting here. But that might mean a lot of units, but not a lot of strong units, so Tainted Ale, you can make a case, not even worth trying to set up with all these guys. I don't know. I think although I do like the Skellige dudes, we might need some bigger stuff here. And this is only one round, remember, so I think we kind of need to get a bit aggressive here. I feel like the Brawlers, you know, we are going to be able to sacrifice them. Whereas the Disgraced Warriors, we probably can. So these guys, especially in a one-round match, have significantly less value. And, I mean, yes, they still get powered up when we use things like, when we sacrifice the other guys and bring those guys back out with Dogger. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Those Horsons, forcing my own subjects to fight us.
I am not feeling confident about just about anything at the moment. So, we would like to probably go Disgraced Warrior first. Then next turn we can Divana Runestone on that, and that means technically we would prefer not to use Dogger just yet. We'd like to use him with our next lead ability charge. Once upon a time, not that long ago, we would also use our lead ability charge to get Isabel out from our deck, but now she's no longer a target for us to go after, so we don't have as many meaningful things to get out from our deck here. So I think it's probably Patricide, and it might be one of the other brawlers in that case, and maybe Barnabas will be the other one we get out when we use Dogger on our second leader building round. So, okay. I mean, if you steal that guy, which is the lowest unit right now, then I guess that's not a terrible thing. Patricide, and it was other skeleton dude. That's what we're looking for. Oh, technically, we'd like to, and we can still do.
The more I drink with our forefathers! Come here, let's dance!
This. Which could complicate things a bit when it comes to the whole who is the lowest unit thing, because I don't really want you to get boosted, but there's a 1/3 chance that that does happen, and then you're gonna get stolen instead, which I guess is still not the end of the world, but we'll see. Okay, much better. Much better.
Life is mine now.
And then, okay, I've seen these guys many times before. So yeah, I have no idea how strong we are relative to our opponents nowadays, now that we no longer have Isabel. Especially in a one-round match. We definitely prefer 3-round matches because that makes it easier for us to replay Skullgate guys more often. So that... Oh. Yeah, no, we need you out. We need you out so that we can, Divana Runestone. So I guess we do that now. Because I kind of was, assuming we were going to do that immediately, but then I forgot we want to go Mahaka Mail as quickly as possible as well. So, then that means for you... I mean, this suggests, because that's a deploy ability, and you started on the board, so you aren't doing anything there. But that suggests that there must be later slave hunters you're going to play, and those ones will steal something. But we should destroy these guys, and in doing so... Wait. Yeah, there's the other objective is we can automatically win if we destroy them all, right? Yeah. So I think Patricide's pretty good at doing that. So you have 8 right now, so I think we can go after one of the big ones. And not thrilled about using Disgraced Brawler to weaken you guys because that could potentially make it one of the weakest cards on our side, and then that makes it a target for future slave hunters. But enough low cards that that's probably still safe for the time being, but yeah. But we should still be fine with Patricide for the time being as well. He's going to destroy one of these guys per turn pretty consistently, and you get boosted, that's fine.
Wise choice.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much going to avoid hitting you guys. Just going to prioritize the slave drivers.
Killing the overseers, the laborers will turn against them.
Exactly. Okay. So now we can go Divana Runestone on you. And that way we get the other Skellige guys boosted up, make it much less likely that they're the cards that get targeted. So I think that's what we go for. So now it's much more likely that it's either you or you, and I think that's, not a huge loss, so we should be okay with that. And now we should be able to do that. So as long as we keep Patricide doing okay, then should pretty consistently be able to shut these guys down. Might even be able to remove one with Disgraced Warrior. In fact, definitely should be able to do that. They are very much going after Patricide, though, which does kind of stink. So, I mean, we can, these guys are not bosses, so we could get one of them with artifact compression. We have to, what is the exact wording? Eliminate all slave drivers. Not sure if we've ever had a situation like this before where we can actually artifact compression on one of the cards that we're supposed to get rid of. Does that count as well, or do they technically need to be destroyed with damage? Not sure if that matters. But the fine print may make a difference on this occasion. So Patricide still has enough damage to destroy one of the big ones, so we should probably do that. Then we do need to make sure we give ourselves enough time with Tainted Ale, and that could be a way to get rid of one of them. Obviously, they're not that big, but we need the removal. So that may still be a good way to go about doing that. So let's hit you. Let's, I mean, I guess we get more Skellige guys down here. We can use you. Technically, the longer we wait, the better it is for Patricide, because we want to have more cards on the board for him to more easily destroy all those guys, or destroy one per turn. So let's go. I guess we want to keep this range roll a little bit sparse so that it's more likely you get boosted up. Good, good. I mean, he should be fine, but we'll see. This is just so clearly our best way to deal with all the slave drivers. Okay, yeah, so we anticipated that might happen. That's a relatively okay card to lose, but not a huge fan of Patricide continuing to get hit here. But if we hit you now there's only 2 left, and we should be able to remove them right now. So I think we might just win immediately. We could also use Raynor to get this order ability back and definitely remove one that way. So let's see. Does this just win us the match right now? It does.
Dead, Your Grace.
I think. Yes. Okay. So the battle itself, not that difficult. It's not really a normal battle in that we had that alternate win condition that we had a pretty good way to get. So not a great test for life post Isbel. But now the question becomes, do we suffer some kind of terrible loss for having chosen to do this when we had some pretty significant warnings about it beforehand?
The Lyrians handily dispatched the Nilfgaardian overseers, more trained in the ways of the whip than the sword.
Okay, what's the damage?
Those who survived now found themselves shackled in the very chains they'd forced the peasants to wear. Peasants. Oh, unfortunate souls. The cruel labor in the quarry had taken its toll. They stood before the queen, shrunken to skin and bone, clothed in tattered rags, their eyes reddened by dust. But in those eyes burned a brilliant fire.
Okay. Oh! Well, we gained a card, so that's positive, but I'm cautiously optimistic about that, because I'm still not sure, though, if we're going to have some kind of bad stuff that happens afterward.
Grace, them black clads treated us like dogs, stripped us of dignity. So we beg you, give us arms, let us march neath your banner.
Ah.
'Tis a chance at revenge we seek, we want.
Reynard leaned towards Meve and spoke in a scarcely audible whisper.
Majesty, they've knout. Not boots, not even foot wraps. To equip the lot, train them, would cost a small fortune.
Whoa. Oh. Okay, so this one's interesting in that it does give us a very clear sign of what happens if we do this. Usually we do not get this clear an indication of, okay, you lose that much gold, which we can afford, and we don't have much else that we're going to spend gold on from here on out unless we do find ourselves in desperate need of crafting units, although as we were starting to say before, not really sure we're going to get saved by making new units because they're not going to be strong enough to make much of a difference anyway. But the plus side is that we gain 40 recruits, which is a very large number, but also is not that significant because we also don't really plan on crafting any recruits, and even if we did, we have more than enough as things currently stand, and 40 incremental recruits makes basically no difference. So there's that. As to whether there are other implications beyond what is listed here, that's a different question. But I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that came to mind was, upon hearing that we have these peasants who were previously working in this mine that is really not suitable for future work. Shouldn't have been worked on right now anyway. We happen to know of a certain town that once upon a time, not that long ago, was occupied and had some useful stuff for people to do there, like hunt game. And that's perhaps something that this group of people could very much benefit from doing, as they are currently skin and bone and whatnot. So that feels like that's kind of a... Maybe they don't get the chance to fight, but it is a very nice way to give them a place to go and things to do. So, you know, I think we do still do this.
You can fight for your homeland in more ways than one,
urged the queen.
not just sword in hand. Return to your homes, your families and fields. Refill the granaries emptied by the Nilfgaardian invader.
The peasants obeyed their queen, only for want of another option. Reluctantly, they dispersed to return to their villages, visibly disheartened by their lost chance at revenge.
Oh no, the queen saved us. We're so disappointed. Okay, in the grand scheme of things though, no major losses. Honestly, that is the only thing that matters. Because I, for a while there, was just thinking about, you know, after having just lost Isbel, there's no way we can survive losing Reynard immediately afterward as well. And as I said, still not a good sense as to whether we can carry on without Isbel, because this was really not a very representative battle, because we had that alternate win condition that we pursued and did so relatively easily. And that's probably not going to be the case going forward. But let's see, we did get a new card. Now, if this happens to be a real difference maker, then maybe that is how we will make things work post-Isbel, but something tells me it's not going to be that much of a miracle. Let's see, some muzzle. That's what we got. Restraint, so can't use it on a boss, but sees a bronze enemy unit. That's pretty good. I mean, that's similar in many ways to, at least on the surface, to the artifact compression, in that for a non-boss, you can remove it, and in this case, for artifact compression, it turns into a 10 power card in your hand, which is probably lower than the value of most cards you would be using it on, at least certainly at this stage in the game. But, and that card, the 10 power card, can get destroyed pretty easily. But there is, I think, an aspect to artifact compression that we overlooked initially, but we've more recently come to appreciate, which is by adding another card to your hand, it gives you card advantage or last say when you otherwise would not have it, which can be extremely valuable. So that's one of the differences here between the artifact compression and the muzzle, is that the muzzle has higher point value directly, and that if you steal a 30 power bronze unit, then it's still going to be 30 power once it gets to your side of the board, which is really nice. And you could, at times, deliberately do things that boost up your opponent's cards just with the intention of stealing it later, which is something we have occasionally done for Tainted Ale, but not very much beyond. I mean, I guess occasionally for artifact compression too. But the weakness, or the way in which muzzle is not necessarily as good as artifact compression, is that it does not add a card to your hand, so it does not give you last say or card advantage, which again is, I think, the thing that I definitely overlooked, and I imagine a lot of people probably overlook about artifact compression. So it's not necessarily just an objectively all-round improvement over artifact compression, although to have both those things is kind of nifty. And if we were to introduce muzzle, the most straightforward thing would be to remove artifact compression, but otherwise we could... I mean, Devon of Runestone's been pretty solid for us. At least, certainly in 3-round matches, getting more Skelga dudes, although then our board starts to get pretty full. The Mahakam Ale has at times been a little bit awkward timing-wise, just because it does necessitate that you play it very early, and there are a lot of other things we also want to play early, like Patricide, other Skelga guys in round 1, and, you know, in round 2, round 3, it's a little easier to do it, and that's generally when we've played it, but that doesn't always work out, especially not when it's a 1-round match. Then it gets a little more difficult to work all those things in. Tainted Ale, part of me feels like it might have been Tainted Ale that we would remove for it. Very good card on the high end when it works well. With the removal, although it is slow, it does potentially allow us to get rid of one of our opponent's strongest cards, if not their strongest card, as long as it's not a boss. And then if we have the infiltrators to go along with that, then that is a really useful combo. It's just that that does compete with the Skellige dudes, at least in round 1, in a multi-round match, because we want to be loading up on as many of the Skellige guys as possible before we break out Dogger. So in general, we've had to either mulligan these guys out or just keep them in hand and wait for round 2 or round 3 before we use them, which has at times made things a little bit tricky. So you could make the case, for that reason, that Muzzle is just a little bit easier to use compared to Tainted Ale. But then we kind of lose our best way to make the infiltrators work, and again, we are now 1 critical card down, having lost Isbel, and I'm not sure we can afford to lose 2/3 cards that were also pretty big factors for us. I mean, again, yeah, the Muzzle maybe is roughly the same value as Tainted Ale, but with Muzzle, it's harder to make infiltrators work. Yeah, you could still put these next to your opponent's biggest card, but the Tainted Ale giving it a 10-point boost gave us a way of making sure the infiltrators, even against opponents that didn't have a lot of boosted cards, were still going to be pretty solid. So, yes, I would like to add Muzzle. There isn't a great way to make it happen. Maybe Mahakamail. Sure, we'll try that. Some encounters this will work well. Other encounters we might actually prefer to have the Mahakamail. Alright, we still... Oh, true. There's also this. In order to make the change, we would need to actually add another card, because our deck is currently illegal because we have 24 cards in it. We need 1 more. Do we even have another unit that we would like to add to it? Or, because there's not a huge difference between Muzzle, the value of Muzzle and the Muzzle of Mahakamail, do we just say, we're going to leave things as is, don't add the Muzzle, and that way we don't have to worry about adding 1 low-value card to our deck, because that's functionally what we'd have to do here. Not sure. Like, we have 1 bomber in our deck right now that is basically complete throwaway. So that's what we'd probably have to do, is throw another one of those in. I mean, if we could get another Trinket, that'd be great, but we can't. Gascon, once upon a time, but I don't think it's really strong enough to justify at this stage. Best Boy. I mean, the resilience is nice, but consuming cards from our hand, I think there was a time when... it's always chaotic. We never really knew exactly how that was going to play out. But there were certainly times when that messed with our plans, and I think at this stage we can't afford that amount of mayhem. Cavalry? Oh, gosh. Don't tell me we need to start throwing some of those guys in. 2 units with the same power. The other row on their side. Moving opponents' units? I mean, that is some Gascon synergies, but it's not enough to justify putting him in, and if the Slinger also not a huge factor in and of itself. This is the problem we find ourselves with. Isbel was a very good card. Yes, amazing card. But also, that means by removing a very good card from our deck, not only do we not have that, we need to put something else in her place that is significantly worse. And whenever we draw into that, it's going to be a bit of a brick. Set a unit's power equal to Mahakam's shield bearer's power. Charge. Okay, that might be the best option. It's another way to handle highly boosted cards that our opponent has, which can at times be helpful. It's along with the Tainted Ales, Artifact Compressions, and the Muzzles. So across all those things, we do have a lot of answers. Okay. I think I can live with that. Okay. So, fortunately, nothing that further adds to our misery after having lost Isbel. But what is this report? Ori Foreman's notes. Translated from Nilfgaardian, Day 1, resumed operations. Okay, so they immediately began operations. And you have to imagine that means they didn't have a lot of time to study why the quarry was not active when they arrived. Day 12, Northern Wall collapse. 12 deaths, 7 injuries, and I'm sure they continued anyway. Day 20, sent more slaves. Day 26. Received slave transport, many decrepit and unfit for labor, assigned to them. Yeah, so rather than not having them work, you just gave them less rations, obviously. Day 30, Eastern Wall collapse, 7 deaths, 5 injuries. Day 32, sent for more slaves. Rinse, repeat. So yeah, pretty terrible. Slave labor, as we suspected might have been the case. I mean, it was pretty obvious that was the case. And again, just complete disregard for the well-being of the people there. So compare that, that would be understandable if Isbel saw us doing something like that and said, nope, I have to go. I disapprove of this. Versus the previous encounter over in this village over here where we just said, you know, Nilfgaardian villagers who are asking us to trust them, that they will not betray us at some point in time. Maybe we don't trust you all that much and we just want you to leave and go back to Nilfgaard because we would rather have Rivians reoccupy this area, not you. And Isabel says, no, absolutely not. It just doesn't really make sense. Feels forced, but alas. That means that next on our list we have this other encounter over here, I imagine, or this one. I mean, both of them are in large fortified cities, which I mean, probably means battles, I assume, against Nilfgaard, I would think. And we're going to see some more 3-round battles, because it's now been a little while since we last had one. That's where I think we're really going to be put to the test, where there are no extra win conditions for us to pursue. Just, can we outscore our opponent? Can we still do that without Isbel? And leaning almost entirely on the Skellige guys? I don't know. We've yet to really determine. But I think one of these two is going to be our actual reality check. But with that being said, I think this is a good place for us to wrap up here. Hey, at least we did pick up a new card, and one that might still be a useful addition for us. Certainly not as big as Isbel was, so on net, past a couple of go-rounds, we certainly still had significant losses, but hey, if we can scrounge around, find a couple more ways to give ourselves some minor little boosts to our deck, maybe we can still find a way to make our way through. Otherwise, we might be in a lot of trouble. But thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.